Rodney, welcome to the podcast.
Man, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So we were talking about this earlier. I initially saw you on Chef's Table on Netflix. Then I'm watching an episode of Billions, and you're in the episode of Billions, and I'm learning about your background. Born in Philadelphia, then grew up in South Carolina. Did you ever imagine that your life would be what it is today?
I honestly never imagined my life would be what it is today. It was always a dream. At 7 years old, I said, I want the world to hear me, but never really thought it would be, the world actually hearing me. So unbelievable. And I never really expected to be where it is.
Yeah. Like if you could speak to like some of your upbringing, right? 'Cause I imagine you worked closely with your dad kind of growing up, and then you obviously learned a lot of lessons. What was the upbringing like?
Man, the upbringing was you work, you get paid, or you work, you get to play. It was the kind of thing that we got as kids. And we grew up on the farm, so you had chores. You feed the hogs, cut the grass, these different things. So it was always a responsible duty or a chore that was given to you on a day-to-day basis. And my dad would make sure that you did that. If you didn't get the privileges that would come along with it.
Mm-hmm. And you had a bit of a different childhood from some of your peers, right? Because of how you spent your time versus how they spent their time.
Oh, yeah. As a child, when school was out, you work after school, you fed the hogs, you did whatever farm work around the house. And if we were in the summertime, we were picking cucumbers or planting and farming because my dad planted tobacco, corn, soybeans, all of the crops that were kind of popular in that area.
And I'm curious, how did your dad get into kind of the barbecue? So there was the variety store and the barbecue, but how did he even start that up?
Well, from what my mom told me, the barbecue started as an addition. Out in the country, these rural stores used to sell hot dogs. Mm-hmm. So my dad started doing barbecue sandwiches on Thursdays. So they would cook one hog on Thursday, and barbecue sandwiches would be ready around 6 p.m. in the evening, and we would just sell sandwiches. I remember them being something like $1.50 for a barbecue sandwich.
And I mean, I guess at that time growing up, did you immediately take an interest to barbecue, or is this just like, this is what my dad's asking me to do, I'm going to contribute?
Man, I had no interest in barbecue at all. That was the duty. That was the chore. My interest was cars, trucks, custom vehicles. That was always my thing. And I felt like I was going to go that direction. But, eventually I fell in love with cooking barbecue and still doing it to this day.
So what was it about barbecue, even about the process that you fell in love with? Like what gravitated you towards it?
One of the things that gravitated me towards barbecue was food. You get to eat. You get to eat what you're cooking. And I started to watch how the flames would burn and how you could put a hot dog on a pit, how you can grill a hamburger. And I started associating the two with the whole hog. And I realized that, it takes 12 hours to cook this hog. We can bake a potato in the hot coals, do these little things in between. And all of that creativity started to just fall on me. Like, I like this. I want to do this.
Yeah. Well, and we were mentioning earlier, you were at our office a few weeks ago, and you cooked that hog. And I was telling you, even with our team, we had people that were vegetarians, people that were on diets. Like, everybody's eating it. It's the best barbecue they'd ever had in their life. If you could speak to like, what is whole hog barbecue all about? Because I'm sure people are familiar with like cooking ribs or and other types of barbecue, but what makes whole hog barbecue special?
So whole hog barbecue is a lot different than cooking ribs or hot dogs, hamburgers. And what makes it special is you got the entire hog. You have the head, the hams, shoulders, loins, the belly. All of these parts are still cooked together. And for me personally, when you cook the whole hog in its entirety, you get a different flavor because you have all these different parts that complement each other. You have the ham and the juices from the belly, putting it all together is just a unique flavor. In my restaurants, me and my partner and I, we describe it as a difference that you could taste.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you mention whole hog, for the people that know what that is, they look at that and they say, well, that's probably one of the most difficult types of cooks to do. What makes it so difficult compared to other types of barbecue?
One of the things that makes whole hog so difficult is it's a 12-hour cook time. So you're giving up at least a half a day, and it's a lot of lifting and moving around. And it also requires two people most times to flip a hog. So it takes another person, it takes 12 hours, and it takes a lot of preparation to just get a whole hog cooked.
And as you've been doing this just over the years, like what are some of the things that perhaps make like your technique unique from other people that do this type of barbecue?
I think one of the things that make our technique unique is we burn our wood down in the coals. So we kind of make our own coals, and we take whole pieces of wood, burn them down until they fall through this rebar in what we call a burn barrel. And we take those coals and cook our hogs with, instead of a direct or indirect heat where the fire is on the side and not under the hog. We take those hot coals and cook them with the coals under the hams and the shoulders.
And if you're looking back, I'm just curious, what's the difference between the type of whole hog that you were cooking 20 years ago versus today? Like what have been some of the, I guess the lessons learned, the experience?
Man, one of the lessons learned compared to back in the day and to current day is metal pits last longer if you're going to do a lot of cooking. Mm-hmm. Cinder block pits back in the day that we used, they worked very well, but they tend to wear after a few cooks. A couple of years, you start to replace them. So we've learned that the metal pits are more durable, they last longer, easier to clean because we cook on a daily basis. And another thing we learned is we've learned how to put the pit in a more convenient space around the restaurant by adding air to the room, putting the pits under hoods, so the pit master can actually be more comfortable when they're cooking in the summertime as well as the winter.
And as you were growing up, from what I've read, there's a lot of people that did not really see a future in this for you. Like that, there were a lot of people you grew up with. Obviously, you were passionate about it, but they said maybe pick a different career, choice than cooking whole hog. Why did you stick with it?
Man, first of all, I didn't have a choice, and then I said I was going to find the love in what I do, and in doing it, a lot of people say, it's a short-term thing. Nobody's wanting all that pork, this, that, and the other. A lot of negative vibes came, but also a lot of positive vibes of stay focused. You can do whatever you want to do. And I just decided I'm going to keep dreaming big. And if this person can do it, so can I, regardless to what I do. And I remember this one guy said in our church, he said, whatever you do, be good at it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I know how to do this. And I said, I'm going to do my best to be good at it.
And do you recall like a certain point? Like, I don't know if there was a certain catalyst or what, where like the Rodney Scott brand really started to take off, where it went from kind of doing this in the convenience store to really starting to get a name for yourself.
Man, I have to say, I started to see the name start to take off in 2010 when we cooked at Jim and Nick's in Charleston. We did the smoked dinner. My partner to this day, Nick Bahak, has invited me to come cook. And I was just nervous, man. I was so nervous. And I noticed how people were enjoying it. And they started to mention my name to other people around the festival and the dinner. And I was like, wow. And I saw an article in the newspaper and I was like, is this a thing now? People are knowing who I am. But that was, I say 2010, around that time when I started to notice people were paying attention to me and the craft.
So I'm curious, what was that partnership like with Nick? Because for people that aren't familiar with Jim and Nick's, it's pretty well known. I mean, it's known in Atlanta, it's known in the South. Like, I mean, that's pretty well known barbecue.
Yeah.
What was his interest in whole hog?
Man, I got to tell you, Nick Bahak is so passionate about relationships, and me and him, we bonded. Probably the very first time we met, and we just talked barbecue. And he always wanted to recognize other barbecue pitmasters. So he invited me to the first dinner that he wanted to do. And we clicked from there. We talked food, we talked hard work, we talked growing businesses, learning businesses. And honestly, he taught me a lot about building a restaurant because I grew up with just cooking whole hogs and chickens. That was it. And he taught me how to put the sides in there and have all of these things complement in a restaurant setting. So, huge shout out to Nick. Everything we spoke about was life, family, barbecue. So he's not just a partner. He's like a brother, a big brother.
And obviously there's a lot of people that, let's say, they love barbecue, they love to cook barbecue, but there's a difference between loving to do something and then being truly passionate with it. What do you believe made you different to be able to build this brand? Like, what do you think that you did differently? Is it just that you stuck with it longer, or do you think it was something else?
I think one of the things that made it different is I stuck with it, and I tried to bring a positive vibe with it. I like to interact with the people that I'm serving as much as I can. And I took art in high school because I was passionate about art. And I always felt like that food needs to kind of look good. It has to be a certain way. The pit has to be turned a certain way. My guys laugh at me to this day because I like to try to wipe everything down to perfection before we even leave the restaurant. And they look at me and they laugh. They said, nobody's going to see that part. I was like, I do.
Yeah.
So I think that passion of wanting to give your best and create a memorable experience is the one thing that makes it unique.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, it's that attention to detail. I mean,
Yeah.
things that maybe someone would say that someone wouldn't notice or maybe wouldn't matter. It is getting those details right.
Yeah.
Were you always that way, or is that something that evolved over time?
Well, again, I've been always that way because I've always loved cars.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child, I would walk up to those old 70s and 80s GM and Chevy cars, and you'd see that strip of chrome. And I would take my finger and try to shine that piece of chrome because I felt like that part was overlooked. And same thing with everything I do to this day. I like to make sure all of the details that I can and do recognize are all on point.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, in today's society, they see kind of the outcome. They see Rodney Scott, James Beard Award winner. You see on Netflix, you see all this stuff. But what they really don't see oftentimes is the climb to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what were some of the challenges that you ran into kind of like growing over these years? Like what were some of maybe even the mistakes that you made?
Man, lots of mistakes I've made over the years, and I took notes from them. You know, if something caught fire because I wasn't in the right position or had something in the right place, I remember, don't do that anymore. And if something was combustible close to the pit, remove that, change the material. Ask questions, always took advice. A lot of things that I've encountered, from financial to physical, lots of mistakes. I always took a note from it and applied it to the future, to the next event, the next outcome, the next setup.
And how did just the whole experience with Netflix happen? Like how did they approach you? Like how did this come to be? Because you got a dedicated episode on Chef's Table. Probably if there's like one culinary show that looks at the top, chefs and culinary experts in the world, that's probably it. Like how did that come to be?
So Chef's Table came about, we had an event in San Francisco, and we flew out there, and it was an all-night event, and you served the next day. And I'm known to sometimes stay up 24 hours when it comes to cooking and serving because that's what I do. That's what I love. And they came in when I was completely exhausted. And these guys walked up and they mentioned doing an episode. And I said, oh, sure. I'm exhausted. I didn't pay any attention. Absolutely. And this is going into day 2 after 4 hours of sleep, going into day 2 for another all-night cook in the afternoon serving. I just felt that, hey, here are 2 guys saying hello. Sure. Yeah, let's set it up. Had no idea that it was as big as Netflix. Angie Mosier was with us at the time, and she said, do you know who those guys were? I was like, not really, because I was so sleepy. But it was like almost magical that I acknowledged them. Yes, let's do it. And, send us a message.
So one thing you mentioned, when you're talking about an all-night cook, like, is it fair to assume that when you say all night, there's not naps happening? This is like all night. So I'm just curious, during that period of time, what are you doing? And then also I heard you like to listen to music.
Oh, yeah.
What are the types of things you can do to kind of keep yourself occupied?
Man, the one thing to keep myself occupied is music itself. I love to party. I'm just put that out there. You catch me at the red light in my truck, I'm partying. Music is one thing, but then there's a certain time of the night that I would turn the music off so I can listen to nature, hear the things around me, hear the fire crackling. And the focus of wanting to deliver that great product is huge for me. Doesn't matter if it's 10 people or if it's 20 people. I'm always super excited, nervous, and so focused that I can't sleep. I'm going to stay awake and make sure that everything is working the way that it should.
Do you still get nervous today when you're
Yes.
doing cooks?
Yes. I get nervous at every single event.
So that's interesting because I don't know that a lot of people realize this. So I've asked this question with a lot of really, really high achieving people that people believe, man, you've done something thousands of times, and they're saying, no, I still get nervous every time.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think that's the passion to want to deliver the best that you can. You want to create a memorable experience. You don't want to just throw it out there. You want, it's kind of like the tortoise and the rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
The rabbit thought he had it.
Mm-hmm.
Old boy creeped right in and beat him. You don't want to take your foot off the gas. You want to give that same effort, that same determination that you gave on that first hog. You want to deliver that on every experience. And that's what I think about when I'm cooking.
And I mean, I don't know if you know this number, but even if you had to estimate, about how many hogs have you cooked to this point in your life? There's even an estimate.
Man, I don't even have an estimate. It's been so many. I remember just one Christmas alone, we did over 100. And, it's been an average of, in Hemingway, at one point, 30 to 35 a week was an average. there was one point on a Saturday, we would do anywhere from 10 to 13 hogs a day and would sell all of it. So, I just stopped counting. And now that we got multiple locations, I couldn't tell you how many hogs I've cooked.
Probably thousands or tens of thousands. And
probably.
And you're still getting nervous every time. Now, what's interesting about that Netflix episode is, and I don't know at the time whether you wanted them to film this or not, was when kind of the pit caught on fire, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I imagine when they're filming, you want to look good, right? Oh, yeah. What was going through your head at that time?
Man, when the pit caught on fire, I was like, I got to get it right. I got to get this straight. How do I fix it? I'm not going to go backwards. I'm not going to settle. I got to get this done. I immediately got on the phone with everybody that I communicated with on a regular basis. My local health department, my building inspector at the time. I called Nick, and we just had this conversation. And I said, hey, listen, here's where I am. This is what I need to do. This is what I'm about to do. And I had portable pits. So where I couldn't cook at the where the fire happened, there was space in the back and around the side. I immediately went and got tents, followed all the protocols, screened everything in, went and got the portable pits, unhooked them from my trailer and laid them down, and I went straight to work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like, I'm going to cook here as much as I can. And we came up with the idea, John T. and Nick came up with this great idea that let's do an exile tour.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's like in the moment, I'm sure it's not something you're excited about. It does make for exciting television, but just seeing you be able to kind of bounce back and be resilient. Now I'm curious when it comes to cooking whole hog. I mean, I imagine you can, there's kind of the debate of art versus science, right? Yeah. You could say, here's exactly how you do it. Here are the ingredients. Here's the time. What's kind of that X factor, almost the art component of like, let's say you've got two people cooking and like how you're doing it versus somebody with the same exact instructions.
Wow. So the way that I do it, I definitely got to keep the fire going at least 45 minutes before your start time. And that's to burn the wood down to make the coals to get it started. And I fire my hog when I say fire, I mean put the coals under the hams and the shoulders with the skin side up. I fire them every 10 to 15 minutes. And I listen for the drip of fat falling in the coals. And a lot of people will fire every 15 minutes consistently. I fire and listen because there's so many things to consider when you're cooking it that way. The outside temperatures, the design of the pits, the time of year it is, all of this stuff makes a huge difference. And I use every sense. I have to listen to it, touch it, feel the pit, how hot it is. All these things play a part when I'm cooking it, as opposed to some of the other pit masters I've seen cook. They would just, do their thing by the gauges and the temperatures. And me, I just go touch it.
So for the uninitiated, and these are the people that aren't, barbecue experts, they're not pit masters themselves. Does it ever bother you that if they don't appreciate kind of the intricacies of what goes into the cook, or do you just say, basically, as long as you enjoy the food, I'm happy?
When I see a pit master just kind of, nonchalantly just doing their thing, I say, well, that's him or her, and I can't do that. I don't want to be that person. I want to just keep on, stay focused. Again, keeping my foot on the gas, making sure that first effort that you put into that hog still apply to each and every one that you do. So it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
But then again, it kind of gives me energy to say I'm doing all right by focusing on staying the course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like having just a respect for your craft, right?
Exactly.
It's like that,
yes.
that obsession. And so when we talk about just food in general, I mean, I know you mentioned there's the ability to bring people together, the type of experiences it creates, the communities that it creates. I'm wondering how much of it is, just from your experience, what's kind of kept you going is the food itself versus the way it brings people together.
Oh man, all of it. The food itself and the way it brings people together keeps me going. Because when you present this food, people are there to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. But when you're presenting the food and you personally present it to them, you get to meet somebody new. You get to hear their stories, their ideas, their thoughts on how they cook, their different styles of how they cook in regions. And for me, that's a new relationship. And you create that new relationship and then you start to communicate. And all of a sudden, there's just one thing that so many people have in common. And there's a new network of people involved in what you do with a positive feeling. It could be the music that I play when I'm cooking versus just where I am and what type of event is going on. You know, for me, it's the people and the food. You know, it's another great memory written.
And if, you know, having done, let's say, thousands, maybe 10,000s of cooks, do you feel at this point that you've mastered it, or how much room for growth do you feel you have at this point?
Right now, do I feel that I've mastered it? No. And I say that because I feel like the very second that you know everything, that's the very second that you know nothing at all. So I continue to listen, learn, and even our new pit masters that we train to follow the guidelines that we lay out for the restaurants, I still listen to them, you know, give them that opportunity to express their thoughts and ideas. Doesn't mean we're going to do it, but, you know, it's still always room for learning, in my opinion.
So then as you started expanding and like opening up these Rodney Scott barbecue restaurants, right, in South Carolina, and there's one in Atlanta and just and beyond, were you a bit apprehensive about kind of letting go a little bit and saying, well, I've got to rely on other pit masters to be cooking this stuff. Can we maintain that same consistency of your name and your brand?
At first, I was very nervous about that, somebody else taking over and me not being there every single second. But also, I had to learn how to teach my craft as well. So with me and my partner, Nick, and our other operating partners, we all got together and we put down a plan to follow the procedures that I've learned to teach. And we all kind of revisit it. And it's still a nervous feel. But, you know, the one thing that calms me down is I just pop up at all the restaurants as much as possible, you know? Like today, I'm going to pop up.
There you go. Because I imagine there must have been some conversation at some point with Nick when he's like, "Man, we gotta start opening up these restaurants."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Well, I don't know about that." Like, was there something specific that he said to you that reassured you that this could be done in a way that wouldn't compromise kind of the quality and your legacy?
Absolutely. I remember the first time he says, "How many do you think you want to open?" And I said 30. And he looked at me and laughed. And then I said, "Well, all right, 3." And you know, didn't think about it twice. And he says, well, if we scale this thing, there's a way that we need to be able to follow it to make sure that we have a nice consistency on all of our products. And that's when he started to explain to me how to make sure our recipes are all locked in and they're all followed by every restaurant that we have. And that gave me some peace of mind that, you know, this is getting done the way it should be.
And how many restaurants are there today?
Currently, there's 4 restaurants. We have the Charleston location. We have one in Atlanta here. We have 2 in Birmingham open right now in Homewood area in Avondale. For the future, we're scheduled to open our Trustville location in Alabama around the Birmingham area. And next year, we're psyched to open in Nashville, where we partnered with Eric Church.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be in Nashville hopefully in 23.
So if you had to project, I mean, I'm sure you have a kind of a number, a goal in mind. If you're looking ahead, 10, 20 years from today, like how many restaurants are you thinking?
10 or 20 years from today, I'm thinking maybe 25, 30 of them. Yeah. I'm here. I am a 50-year-old man, and my cousin said to me, "You got more years behind you than in front of you." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Man, I'm gonna swing at this pitch. Yeah. See if I can get a home run."
I mean, I feel for the people. Like, we're fortunate in Atlanta. We've got Rodney Scott Barbecue. I feel for the people that have not experienced this yet. So, like, in terms of spreading this goodness with the world, like, would you ever even consider, let's say that number was 300?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, if this food is great, people are loving it, like, you want to, expand indefinitely. And it's just, I'm wondering, like, who would you say is your competition today?
McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I say that for a reason. I used to always read their signs, billions served, as a kid. And I said, I'd like to serve a lot of people myself. And they're all over the world, Here's a clown serving food all over the world. And I said, we could do this too. We can serve barbecue all over the world. And now that we know how to make it consistent, to have a guideline on how we're going to prepare all of our foods, this can go anywhere. And that is my thought. And I feel like that's the goal I'm trying to reach, to be out there and have great quality food all around the world.
And what would you say are like just the differences and the challenges that you experienced in the early days versus the challenges today with the restaurants? Like, I imagine they're very different.
Yeah. Oh man, early days, we burn our wood outside. So if a storm came up and it's raining and lightning, you were just, you're almost on pause if it was lightning. And if it's raining, you just got to go out there and get soaking wet. And as opposed to now, everything is on the inside. So we have like a fireplace as opposed to a barrel like we had back in the day. So we've advanced some things on the inside. It's a lot more convenient now, a lot less stressful. We have fans and ventilation pulling the smoke out a lot faster. So the room stays a lot cleaner. These are all things that we experience and learn. And today, it's like we went from an old beat up pickup truck to the best of vehicles,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know sometimes people believe like, when you get to a certain point, the problems go away. I guess maybe they go from one set of problems to a different set of problems.
Yeah. The problems change.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily go away, but we take them with a grain of salt. We're prepared for whatever problems or situations, and we just stay focused and attack them.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm curious about Billions. I know we talked about Netflix.
Yeah.
For the people that watch Billions on Showtime, there was this one episode,
Yeah.
I think it was on the most recent season, and I don't know if they ever did this on any episode of the show, but for that episode, every scene, they would do a freeze frame, and then they would line item out everything everyone was wearing, what watch they were wearing, what suit they were wearing, like who was in the room, like, and you're there, like basically cooking this private dinner. How did that come to be?
Man, apparently one of the producers made a trip to Charleston and, kind of had us in mind, and the message came through, and I was like, are you kidding me? You talking about Showtime Billions? And they're like, sure. I was like, dude, I watched that. And they said, well, they're interested in, having a conversation. I said, yes. But what terms? I said, yes.
That's right.
The answer is yes. Set it up. I want to do it. And, they made it all happen. We went up to New York, and, of course, you got to lay low. You can't tell everybody what you're doing. And man, it was hard to hold that secret.
Yeah.
Wow. It was hard to hold that secret. I was so excited to do that.
And that was like a whole day of filming, right? Was it a 1 day?
It was a 1 day of filming. It took a day to prep for it, and another day of filming, but it was so much fun to see how behind the scenes this show works. And then you're working with these professionals, man, Wags and Scooter. And I'm like, whoa, these guys are like right in front of me.
Yeah.
I was like a kid in the candy store, man. I was super happy that day.
And you weren't just someone in the background in this episode. I mean, they gave you
they gave me lines.
They gave me lines.
They let me talk. They really, really let me talk. And I was like, I think this is a big thing for me to be able to say something on TV. And they was like, what are you talking about? I was like, dude, I get to talk on the show. But it was, man, super excited. I would do it again if I had the opportunity.
Yeah. So now over the years, I mean, you seem like someone who's done a really good job of staying grounded. I imagine you've got the right people around you, but how have you stayed grounded, kind of through this evolution of everything from, doing it out of the back of a pickup truck to the restaurants to now being on Netflix and then on Showtime? Like, how do you remain humble?
Well, one of the ways I remain humble is to know that you have to always have respect. And I feel like when you lose that humbleness, you start to disrespect everything and the people around you. And another thing I do is I spend time by myself every day. There's at least 1 hour of nothing every day, no matter what time of day it is. And if you present an accolade to me today, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Right. But then I'm going to sit it aside I know it's there, but I'm not going to focus on it. I'm going to try to get it again.
Yeah.
So that kind of keeps me grounded. Say hello to people, pay respect. Don't think that you're above everybody else, because I feel like we're all, worth an acknowledgement, at least. Hello, good morning, how are you? So every time we get an accolade through the brand or whatever it is, I appreciate it, and then I set it to the side and say, I want to focus on the next one. Mm-hmm. And for me, that keeps me working hard. That keeps me grounded. And, I had a teacher, Miss McAllister, in high school. She says, stay Rodney. And her thing was stay grounded, don't lose it. So,
yeah, it's like being grateful, but not getting complacent, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, over the years, I mean, just with your level of obsession, I mean, essentially, we had Tim Grover on the podcast. He was the performance coach to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and he talked about just winning and this level of obsession and commitment you have to succeed at the highest level. I'm wondering, were there things that you had to give up along the way, or were there people that said, "Hey, Rodney, like you should relax, you should do less"?
Yeah, there were a few people that came along, that said, you should go party, you should go do this, and I'm like, nah, I got to stay focused. There was one guy said, you should be driving this and wearing designer, this, that, and the other, and I'm like, well, I do have a brand. It's called Rodney Scott's Whole Hog Barbecue, and that T-shirt is worn daily. That's the brand, and I just keep the negative vibes away, because there are a lot of people that tell you what you should do, but they don't understand that, just because you got recognized for something means that you get to relax. You got to continue to work. And I tell my partner Nick all the time, I was like, dude, fame is only 15 minutes. We got 9 minutes left. Let's go to work. And we say that all the time in the restaurants.
Man. So I want to put this in perspective for people. If you had to, I mean, it could be a rough estimate, but just think about the time you cooked your first hog to the time where things really started to take off to the first restaurant. Like, what's kind of the time frame between that and the opening of the restaurant, and like how many hogs and maybe how many hours, go into that, just to give people an idea of like, how long it takes?
Wow. To come from cooking that first hog to where I stand currently today, it's about a 30-year ride. I explained it to a group as a 30-year overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of hard work in it. There's a lot of sweat, blood, and tears that's been all up in creating and getting to that first restaurant level. A lot of fear, a lot of determination. It takes a whole lot of optimism, because you can easily lose focus and be down and give up. And I always took things in stride slowly, not too much at once, and just stayed focused. You're talking about lots of hogs, lots of tree cutting, lots of back and forth. I remember driving sometimes to Charleston just to show my face at events, and that's 4 hours round trip. So a lot of networking effort just to get to where we are. And to this day, that still continues.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, I know a lot of times people look at certain ventures and they say, okay, like it's about the money, but I fail to see how you can, if it's about the money, I don't know, you do 30 years of just dedication and obsession. There's other ways to make money.
This is the one thing that I know. This is the one thing that I understood. And I feel like if I continue to practice it, it would be great. So that's why I stayed focused and said that I can make it, the best that I can.
And were there times where you thought about just saying, hey, this is not for me. I'm going to give up. I'm going to quit. I mean, imagine at least one time.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah.
I was like, golly, what is this life? This is tough. And I said, I'm gonna give it a few more months. And I gotta hang in there. I came this far. I can make it. And it got better. Got a lot more settled. And I said to myself, I'll never ever mentally or verbally give up again.
Yeah,
because I got this.
It's probably good that happened in 2019, because I imagine the following year, it's probably good to make the commitment before that.
The following year was a totally different thing. But, we survived. We made it. We focused on taking care of our staff first. We focus on making sure that we can maintain and keep them, if not paid, fed. And then we found out how to, stay focused. We communicated every day. We learned all the rules and regulations, and we just did our best to work around with it, and work around all the trials and tribulations and stay focused and keep going.
And I know you mentioned Nick a few times, and I wonder, like, do you believe you could have gotten to where you are today on your own, or did you have to find those right people, or maybe they found you to be able to just collaborate together to build what you're building today?
I absolutely would not have made it on my own. I had no intentions on leaving Hemingway. I had no intentions on doing anything other than a few jobs away from Hemingway. And Nick saw a different vision. And in his vision, he explained to me all of the possibilities and opportunities that can and will be in front of me at the time. And I was like, nah, I'm good, And eventually I said, okay, let's do it. And getting with him, talking to him, and our communication, our relationship, because we had a relationship long before we decided to open this restaurant. And he explained to me the business side of things, the restaurant side of things. And in him explaining everything to me, it gave me that confidence to finally say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And, so far it's worked out. It's been great.
Were there any of the, looking back, any of the naysayers at the time, have they come around? Do you have any of these people say, Rodney, I always believed in you?
A few of them mother, what's came back.
It's funny how things change, right?
Yeah. I want to say about 4 that I know of came into the restaurant in Charleston at the time and kind of tried to smooth their way back in. And, you could smell them coming a mile away with that crap. But, it made me feel good because I didn't let what they said take away the vision that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, when your critics become your customers,
yeah,
you're doing something right.
Oh yeah, definitely. I hear people say something or criticize, and I'm like, all right, cool. Let's work on that part.
Mm-hmm.
It's more inspiration.
So you've described yourself as kind of like a glass half full type of guy. Like where does that come from? Like, was it something just from your childhood? Like how did that come about?
Glass half full came from childhood and up to current day. You would hear so many people speak negative, talk negative, and yet you're alive. So if you're alive, try to avoid the negativity and just build something positive. I remember I made a playlist on the plane because the lady behind me got on my nerves. She complained about her family. She was complaining about the government and all these different things, and she was ruining my flight. And she sat behind me. And I remember I went through my music and I put a list together. And this list is all upbeat, all fun. By the time I got off of that 45-minute flight, I think I had about 30 songs on a list that were all upbeat. And I said, it's just got to be fun. And my glass is going to be half full. I understand things happen. I understand challenges come along, but you have to stay positive. And my glass has to stay half full, not half empty.
And I know we're doing a cook today.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I mean, the team's already salivating. I'm excited. It really is amazing. Like, what I was saying, like people that would never even try to eat barbecue are loving this barbecue. And more importantly, it's just, even when you were doing that cook a few weeks ago, like, it could tell that you were still genuinely passionate about it. Like you're not watching from the sidelines. Like you're right in there. Like you love it.
I'm in there. I remember I got a spot on that shirt and I was like, there's a memory.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the shirts that my wife is like, don't mess this up. I'm like, you're in trouble. If I'm wearing it, I'm going to do whatever in it. So.
Mm-hmm. Has she, with your wife, has she been kind of a supporter all along the way? Has she been kind of like, your advocate?
Oh, yeah. She's definitely been a supporter. She makes sure that I don't let the job get to me. Mm-hmm. She makes sure and not give me a headache when I get home. It's like, how was your trip? That's good. Making sure that I'm all good on the home side as well as the work side. She's always been there.
Man, it's like if there's important decisions to make in life, outside of like your vocation of like how you're going to spend your time, it is the person you're going to spend your time with. And and I mean, I've known so many entrepreneurs that, I mean, it's hard enough as it is to build a business and grow a business, but if you come home and it could be 10 times more difficult if the person there is just giving you a hard time, like basically saying, hey, you know what, you should take it easy, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Take it easy. I get that peace of quiet, that space. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that section in the house where they can just go to and it's just quiet and you can do whatever you feel or whatever you're thinking. And, I get that. I get that peace on a daily basis. So that helps a lot with the way that we travel, the way that we work, and the way that we're getting things done with these new restaurant openings. So all of that helps.
And now as you reflect, I mean, just on everything up until this point, are you proud of yourself?
Man, I am very proud of myself. I'm surprised at myself. Very humbled and appreciative that the dedication and determination really stayed with me to continue to live out the dream. Yes, the dream was for them to hear me, but now they're seeing me, they're tasting our food, and I'm interacting with people that I've seen on TV. I'm on TV, and all of that, man, makes me very, very proud and gives me that feel good of spreading that joy back to younger generations. Like, hey, the world is your playground. Take it over.
How old are you today?
I'm 50 years old. Yeah.
So isn't it interesting when you think about that? Because you talk to different people, and I'm sure they think that, at this point I'm at the, whatever halfway point of my life. And I imagine that the past 50 years have now been the preparation for the next 50 years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember when I was 35, I told this older guy, I said, I want to retire by the time I'm 40. Yeah. He was like, boy, you crazy. Didn't retire by the time I was 40. But at 40, I was learning how to build myself towards a better retirement. So very appreciative of who I've become and all of the accomplishments that me and my partner Nick, Paul, Nicholas, and my whole team has been, helping to build.
So I have to ask this, and if you're not able to answer this, I understand. But there are a lot of people listening because the listeners are all over the country, and some of them may not have a Rodney Scott barbecue nearby.
Okay.
Are there any plans to do like online ordering?
We are doing a little bit of looking into online. Currently, we have our merchandise online. You can get the rub, the sauces, the T-shirts, the hats. But we are kind of, taking a look into that, a little peep. And if it works out, we'll try to be able to spread that love all over the country, all over the world, hopefully.
So Rodney, as we come to a close, this being the Game Changing Attorney podcast, what does being a game changer mean to you?
Man, being a game changer to me, it humbles me, and it gives me the energy and the opportunity to spread positivity everywhere I go. I feel like we can change with so many things happening in the world the way that they do. I feel like we can change the game through food, through barbecue, and spread a lot of positivity and love.